news about AI and its potential bias in terms of how it operates and what it does has been swirling around the internet ever since the Gemini chaos happened. For those of you who are unacquainted, Google launched its AI search engine, Gemini, and Gemini basically generated pictures that were not really historically accurate. For example, they generated this picture here of George Washington being a black man and popes being black, things that just are ahistorical, but many people were quite keen to note were informed rather by the biases and beliefs of our current era about history rather than objective history. And so this has caused a lot of conversation about this type of practice. Although this conversation, in my opinion, isn't actually cutting to the heart of the issue. The heart of the issue is not that AI can be used in a manner or programmed in a manner that is biased. All language models can and have been for a very long time. That is a problem indeed, but it is simply a single aspect of the broader problem. The broader problem is that AI is a part of this cultural revolution, or I should probably say this civilizational revolution that is changing the way people see the world, people see each other, and also that people see human nature. And in that sense, AI poses a very specific danger to us as Americans, conservatives, as human beings, that bias in a search engine couldn't even begin to approach or comprehend. Indeed, the threat of AI, I contend, is threefold. Number one, it weakens our willingness to actually engage not only with ideas, but engage with activities that help refine our mind and also help us appreciate the world more. Everyone and anyone, from an intellectual to an artist, can go to AI and have articles produced, have pictures produced, and they can outsource their work permanently to this impersonal source. And when they do that, it delays, or even in some instances, stops dead in its track the pursuit of excellence that anyone that does any kind of craft has inherent in their soul. The second problem with AI, or the second potential danger of AI, is that it weakens our understanding of what is real and what is not real, because it is part of the whole encompassing digital revolution of our world, where our minds and our thinking is processed through digital means. And in this sense, it also weakens our understanding of what a good society is and also what sound ethics are. The third danger, I'll go through this as well, of AI, a potential danger, is more fundamental, is that the new perceptions that AI and the coming digital reality bring about human nature will fuel ideas like transhumanism that decidedly will have political impacts and implications on our society. But not only that, they will have significant impacts and implications about human nature and what it exactly is. Let's go through these one by one so I can explain the significance of all of these to you and perhaps give you some tools to approach these problems. Before I continue, allow me to say this. I'm not a troglodyte. I don't hate technology. I'm someone who actually has a very distinct interest in the relationship between technology and human progress. But I'm also someone who understands that human progress has fundamental limits. And in a society that is constrained by first principles, that is mediated by sound thinking, and that is based on fundamental ideas, you must not allow your desire for progress to overthrow the necessity of moderation and also overthrow the necessity of glacial and measured change. People think that change inherently is good. Change can be good if you are improving on the conditions that you currently have. But when change is happening for the sake of change, that is how you get ideas whose contents and whose merits are not considered, but rather the fact that they are novel and they are something different is what is considered. This is how progressivism managed to sneak into American society and corrupt it. Because the progressive in the early 1900s, in the early 20th century, was responding to a set of conditions that had been seen as old and ancient, that were also seen by people of that time in some quarters as unacceptable and requiring new ways of thinking and acting. And so the progressives came along and they said, well, instead of actually having a society that is guided by voluntary cooperation, instead of having an economy that is built off of the exchange of value between people and their own capacities, instead of having a government based on first principles and consent of the government and all these constraining ideas, We need to focus instead on administration, centralization, and organizing society to fit our perfect image of what it should be. And that means usurping all of the limitations of our current society and just putting us on a fast track of endless progress. But what happened? That ended up, and I'll get to the AI point in a moment, but that ended up in destroying separation of powers, which by 1935 was completely gone because the Supreme Court had ceded them entirely to the fourth branch of government. Not only did it do that, but it ended up changing the mind of so many Americans in terms of how they view the relationship between themselves and their government, so much so that there are certain programs, such as Social Security and other welfare kind of programs, that if you even touch or even talk about, people get offended, despite the fact that for most of American history, we didn't have such programs because not only were they not necessary, they were anathema to the spirit and ethos of our country. So, in the sense that progress politically can be dangerous, progress technologically, especially when it is paired with the political and the social, can be even more dangerous if it has no guardrails. There are limits to this kind of thing. So the first problem with AI is that it weakens our willingness to act and think in engaged ways. Think about the 90-second soundbite phenomenon that has come to define the social media era that we currently exist in. Think about what that actually means for our ability to understand the world. Well, we understand, as Nicholas Carr points out in his brilliant book, The Shallows, that this 90-second, 60-second video clip type phenomenon that has pervaded our current era weakens attention spans, that's obvious. But more than that, it also decreases our ability to understand complex and abstract concepts, as has been shown in Gen Z and the youth. It has decreased their ability to do so. In contrast to previous generations, which still had to grapple with the meat and the substance of perhaps long written works, perhaps even very dense works, these days, everything is served up on a silver platter of instantaneous information. Well, the implications of this are very important because if you don't engage substantively with a particular idea, you will not understand the idea and you will not understand how to engage with that idea correctly, which leaves you open to manipulation from people who may have a benefit in you engaging in certain ideas in a certain way that may not be advantageous to your own personal growth or advantageous towards the growth of people in society, but instead advantageous to their own growth and their own agendas. Which is why a lot of people, whenever you look at the issue of propaganda, one of the key facets of propaganda is assaulting the mind with ideas that rewire how we think. Well, the internet, in a sense, has done that organically simply by existing and having these algorithms that reprogram the mind to think. But we understand excellence today. This is the bigger threat of AI. Excellence by the pursuit of a particular activity done in a way that is distinctive in terms of how it is done and what results that it produces. That's excellence. But if your thinking is outsourced now to this impersonal algorithm, or you as an artist, your drawing or writing becomes outsourced to this impersonal algorithm, what implications does that have for excellence? Especially in a society where merit is constantly sacrificed on the altar of equity and also on the altar supposedly of benevolence. Well, the implications are absolutely disastrous because there will be certain crafts and certain disciplines that will become, if not made obsolete, become incredibly transformed by AI in the sense that excellence may no longer apply to them. Excellence is the way that the great men of society distinguish themselves in their contributions to the world and are then recognized by people of a sound mind and then imitated by those same people so they can pursue excellence in their own way. AI may very well take away that role model figure that helps people in society improve. It may very well take away the merits or the sort of use of pursuing a lot of different disciplines, such as writing or art, in the traditional way of doing so, which will require the accumulation of knowledge, which will require understanding how to make a good picture, understanding how to make a good argument, and it'll take care of all that for us, thus making us as human beings lazier in our thinking and our action, and making us fundamentally disconnected from what we need to be able to perfect our world and be able to perfect our craft. If I don't have a connection to something, my friends, I can't understand it, nor can I truly be bound by it. And that is a very serious implication that we should really all look into. Think about how research papers are being changed these days, right? A student that undertakes a research paper in general has to go through the process of looking at information that they may have to find, researching, searching things, entertaining different arguments, things of that sort. All these refine the mind, but the moment these become outsourced, the student becomes disconnected with the product that he's supposed to be producing, the intellectual work, and he has no conception of it anymore in a real sense. That is quite dangerous. And this kind of leads me to my next point. What is real and what is not real? In the era of deepfakes, in the era where so many people will proudly proclaim we live in a post-truth society, in an era when virtual reality is becoming one of the more dominant forms of hobbyism and entertainment, so much so that in some cases it has overtaken our moral sense, so much so that people are now beginning to file lawsuits on virtual reality because they believe they were groped by virtual reality. In a world where the lines between what is real and what is not real are increasingly blurred and unclear, we have to really ask ourselves, how is AI going to feed into this problem? Well, there's many ways. As I mentioned, there's deepfakes. There is engrossing the mind, the sort of technological state, where it becomes more interesting and more engaging to be in a virtual, customized world than it does to actually be in reality. I have used virtual reality goggles before, once or twice, and every time I have, I was both astonished and disconcerted with the sheer level of detail and the sheer level of immersion those devices give the human being. I was astonished because nothing like this has been seen until this point in history, and it is clearly a feat of human ingenuity to be able to produce something of this magnitude. But I was disturbed because there are times where your dopamine receptors are engaged and your mind is so fully engrossed in this single device that it becomes more interesting and also becomes more fulfilling for some people, especially who have lives that are not so good, to remain in this world for a very long time. And that is disconcerting because we only understand ethics, what is right and what is wrong, and we only understand human nature by appealing to reality, by appealing to the concrete. But in a world where everything is custom-made and the concrete is simply an afterthought to the custom-made realities that are at our fingertips, we can't understand ethics. We can't understand society. We can't understand what is necessary to preserve society or preserve ethics. This is more concerning than woke Gemini because fundamentally, we understand that woke Gemini is wrong because it violates the principle of historical veracity. It violates historical validity. But in a world where we don't even have a reference point for what validity is, what veracity is, or anything like that, maybe woke Gemini would be accepted. See, we always look at the sensational concept, but we never look at the context the concept lives in. The only reason we can call out Gemini or distortions of history is because we know history. And we know history because we know and understand how to learn. And we know that learning is important because we live in reality and we accept that certain things are true and certain things are not true. But the moment the world becomes customizable, what is true and what is not true rests entirely on your perception, your subjective taste, and your ability to customize them through the digital interface. And AI can feed into that. That's a danger. If the moment we lose our grounding of what is true and what is not true is the moment we can not only fall for more things, it's the moment we can become completely disconnected from what is truly human and from everything else. From that point of ignorance, everything else is bound to fall apart. We can only act correctly if we know how to act correctly. But if our minds are encapsulated in this digital prison, we can't quite do that. But then the third problem that I mentioned before is that human nature itself, and a lot of people who are into this technology thing, who are really into it, who are like ideologically possessed by it, we'll say this. Human nature itself, if I can customize reality, if I can customize my mind, then the logical conclusion is that I can customize human nature. It's the fundamental problem. There are a group of people called the Transhumanists in our society who wish to edit human nature to remove the imperfections, or what they call imperfections, such as aging and other aspects of mortality, cancer, and things of that sort. And they wish to update, they say, the human being to be this immortal, superhuman person. Now, the moment you edit human nature, if that's even possible, I think that is actually really a matter of hubris and pride to do such a thing. But assume that's possible. The moment you update the human person is the moment everything else that flows from human nature also has to be either updated, or what happens in updates, sometimes things are discarded. If our morals and our ethics are sourced from the principles of human nature, then what happens when you update those principles and you potentially discard them? A new ethical system is created. But this time won't be any objective reference point for this system. It'll be at the behest of those doing the updating. This is the problem. In a world where technology is centralized, in a world where there is this collective push to update the human being, there can easily be a centralized push or collective push to change what we actually see as right and wrong, to change what we actually see as good human engagement, to change what we see as virtue, to change so many different things, oftentimes in this context, without any fundamental reference point other than this unrestrained idea of progress being a moral good. This is the danger we are facing. But not only that, we're facing more than that. We are also facing the deification of man. See, one of the reasons why humans are able to progress in the first place is that we understand our limits, and we work within those limits to achieve creative potential. But the moment we say that limits are simply an inconvenient idea of past generations that were bound to primitive states, as the theorist Yuval Noah Harari, who was one of the biggest transhumanists of our age, will say, if you believe that, then there truly are no limits to anything in terms of progress. And you can cut corners in so many different ways to ensure your version of progress succeeds. These are the real dangers of the AI revolution in the context of the broader general revolution that, in my opinion, are not being focused upon enough by people. Now, how do we fix this? There's a few ways. But the most important way, and this is probably the most satisfactory answer I can give any of you, is going to be by understanding that technology is a tool that can be used for good or bad. It is fundamentally neutral. But in it being neutral, we have to fight for it to remain decentralized. We have to fight for it to remain not encompassing, but to remain a visible tool in reality rather than an all-encompassing feature of our existence. And we also have to fight, in my opinion, for the slowing down of AI development to the extent that we can actually understand what its effects will be as it continues to develop and go on. Right now, we don't. And there was a call to slow down development as of posting this video, a few months ago, but that has not been heeded. It is probably going to be best for us to heed that. But there's a few other honorable mentions I want to give to this topic. As humans in the digital era, we are in a perpetual feedback loop. It goes from the internet, our understanding of knowledge goes from the internet to smartphones, to algorithms, social media. That is how we not only learn these days in many cases, that's not how we only process knowledge these days in many cases, but it's also fundamentally how we transmit knowledge. And in that sense, we are being wired to exist in a certain era. So many of us are so glued to our phones to the extent that we can't go beyond them, or we can't really think in a way, we can't really imagine a world without them. That's a concern. Because in previous generations, the pursuit of knowledge required a lot more than it does now. In some ways, it's been expedited. In some ways, you can just get a book that may be obscure with a simple Google search. But in other ways, it is obscured because your ability to understand what is written is going to be much more limited and much more on a time clock than it was before. And this algorithmic sort of feedback loop is even more concerning when you realize how the algorithms are weaponized against the learning man. An ethicist for Google came out and said that he was charged with designing a way to manipulate how people think via the search engine. People don't understand that search engines like Google are not designed to help you learn new information. They are designed from the outset to shape how you view information. So imagine this. You have a confusion about human nature brought forth by the encapsulation of the digital world into our minds. You have a confusion about ethics brought forth by this same encapsulation. And you fundamentally have a disconnection from the pursuit of excellence and habits and activities and the outsourcing of all those things towards AI that exist in the same context. Plus you have people then manipulating you to think in the way that they want you to think. What do you get? You get a society of rewired robots, not truly humans, but rewired robots, who will bend at the whim of whatever tyrant or developer or intellectual man who controls the algorithms want them to bend to. And that, my friends, is the true threat of AI. AI can be a force for good, but as things are shaping up right now, it is looking to be a force for control, a force for confusion, a force for moral illiteracy, and most importantly, a force of darkness that clouds our mind from the clear, concrete ground of reality. Imagine a political system birthed from these set of circumstances. It doesn't sound pretty. It doesn't sound nice. I don't want it. So we have to all remain vigilant. We have to all make sure that technology does not become the encompassing point of our lives, but it instead is a tool to enhance our lives within reality, not outside of reality in these virtual spaces. And we have to demand more from ourselves in society in terms of how we read, how we learn things, and the kind of habits of the mind that we're going to cultivate to ensure that we can actually survive this incoming digital revolution and keep our society, our lives, and our understanding of these issues fundamentally intact. My friends, if you like this video, like, comment, share, subscribe. If you're interested in politics with a hint of philosophy and social issues with the same analysis system, then please be sure also to subscribe and to comment, all that kind of stuff. My friends, study history, study philosophy, remain morally convicted, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.